And China says it believes Iran can handle its tensions with Israel well and spare the Middle East further turmoil. The comment followed a phone call between Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his Iranian counterpart Hossein Amir-Abdollahian to discuss Iran's first direct attack on Israel, which has ignited fears of outright conflict between the two countries. Beijing reports that Tehran is willing to exercise restraint and has no intention of further escalating tensions. Mr. Wang noted that Iran had described its actions as limited and conducted in self-defense. He also strongly condemned Israel's deadly attack on Iran's embassy in Syria, calling it a serious violation of international law. Iranian forces responded to the destruction of the consulate by launching over 300 missiles and drones at Israel. On the other hand, Japan slammed Iran for its attack on Israel. Foreign Minister Yoko Kamikawa says the strikes have worsened the situation in the Middle East, urging Tehran to prevent tensions from escalating. Meanwhile, Israel is staging a diplomatic offensive against Iran. Foreign Minister Israel Katz says he has sent letters to 32 countries asking them to sanction Tehran's missile program and label Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps a terrorist organization. Mr. Katz did not say which governments he had approached. Iran has warned that any direct military attack on its territory will be met with an immediate retaliation. And for more, Alex Cadier joins us live from Tel Aviv. Alex, the Israeli cabinet yet to say at this point exactly how it will respond to Iran's missile and drone attacks. I believe this time yesterday, there was news. You hinted at a targeted, calibrated option for Israel. But what sort of options are we looking at as far as the Israel response to the Iran attack might be?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And actually, it's been a day of they're going to have a targeted response. Then there were fears that actually it would be a much broader response. And now what we're hearing from U.S. intelligence officials and U.S. sources is that it may be a response against Iran's proxies and not directly against Iran. Now, that would be something that would make Israel's allies breathe a sigh of relief. We understand it could be targeting Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. It could be targeting the Houthi rebels in Yemen, or, of course, Hamas in Gaza, which the Israeli armed forces have been fighting for 6 months now. But clearly, it's still unsure, and I suspect we won't know exactly what that response is until after it's happened. I don't imagine the Israeli War Cabinet are going to give many details ahead of any particular military response. We have heard from different sides of the Israeli government, and that would indicate that limited response may still be the course of action. Herzi Halevi, the head of the Israeli Defense Forces, saying that Israel will respond, but at a time and place of their choosing. That would suggest not an immediate military response. And as you rightly mentioned it, Israel Katz, the foreign minister, 32 letters sent out to countries around the world, trying to rally some kind of international response to what was an unprecedented attack by Iran. And had it not been for that coalition of air defenses, both, of course, the Israeli air defenses, the United States Air Force, the Royal Air Force from the UK, the Jordanians, the scenes that you see behind me and across Israel could have been very different indeed. So for now, and again, there's no official confirmation, it seems a limited response specifically targeting Iran's proxies and not Iran directly.
And of course, back to that war in Gaza, the UN saying aid, Israel still imposing restrictions on humanitarian assistance entering Gaza. But both Tel Aviv and Washington saying more supplies are in fact entering the enclave. What is the situation as you understand it?
Well, we actually get daily updates from the Israeli government's agency in charge of coordinating aid to Gaza. And you see a flux up and down of the number of trucks going in. Yesterday was as low as 168. The day before that, upwards of 240. Clearly very short of that 500 truck number that the UN and other aid agencies say is the bare minimum to get aid into Gaza. We also know the Israeli military is continuing its operations in the Strip. They have dropped leaflets in Gaza, in Deir el-Balah, in the center of Gaza, urging people not to return to the north, as it is an active military zone, is what the Israeli armed forces have warned Palestinians. We know the aid situation remains dire. We particularly know the situation in Rafah when it comes to overcrowding and unsuitable living conditions remains very difficult indeed. I want to give you a little detail of a conversation between Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor in the US, and Israeli officials. He said, you are not currently able to get 50 trucks into northern Gaza. How do you expect to evacuate the people of Rafah? It's going to take months before that operation is possible. That is an argument between the Israelis and the US that rumbles on.
Our thanks to Alex Cadier speaking to us there in Tel Aviv.